Ukraine. Now, Russia had threatened military tribunals for local officials and those who were refusing to surrender. And one likely target of those threats is the Azov Battalion, a militia that grew in opposition to Russia's takeover in the Donbass in 2014. One of the principal characters was the Ukrainian white nationalist Andriy Bieletsky. The battalion has consistently used insignia associated with the far right, and while they are only a fraction, and I do stress that, only a fraction of Ukraine's military, and hardly a pretext for the destruction that Russia has caused, they have played quite a significant role in the defence of Mariupol, including the training of ordinary citizens. So what do we know about them and who are they? Here's Vitaly Shevchenko. He's from BBC Monitoring.
Azov is a battalion which was set up back in 2014, which is when Russia first attacked Ukraine. Back then, Ukraine was led by a pro-Russian president called Viktor Yanukovych, and its army was led by a pro-Russian defense minister called Pavel Lebedev. Both later fled to Russia. So little surprise then that Ukraine's army was in no state to fight Russia and had to rely largely on volunteers. So volunteers in southeastern Ukraine, in Donetsk and Zaporizhia region, they formed the Azov Battalion, and right now it forms the core of the Ukrainian resistance in the besieged port city of Mariupol.
And the Russians and the Kremlin constantly refer to them as the neo-Nazis that they're after. Do we know what percentage of this brigade have Nazi sympathies?
It's hard to put your finger on the exact share of people who harbour neo-Nazi views, but back when it was set up, a lot of them did have extremist leanings. And I mean, let's look at the Azov logo. It's a version of the German Wolfangel symbol, which was used by the Nazis extensively. And later on, in 2014 and 16 as well, the Azov Battalion was accused of committing atrocities in Donbass, torture and rape. Since then, it seems as though its leadership has tried to reinvent the movement, and I was looking at the Azov Battalion's social media activity and its website, and all they talk about is fighting the Russian forces, and there's very little in terms of extremist, anti-migrant or xenophobic rhetoric there.
I know that there was a video they shot in the theatre that was bombed, but is there any evidence that they are using areas, civilian shelters, areas that civilians are sheltering, as cover?
Well, a lot of these accusations, they mostly come from Russia, and they're mostly unevidenced. In fact, this is a strategy that Russia has been pursuing, not just in Ukraine, but in places like Syria, for example, where it's been targeting hospitals, bakeries, schools, and saying they are used by jihadists. So the difference with Ukraine is that in Ukraine, Russia says that they're being used by neo-Nazis and the military. It seems to be, this strategy seems to be designed to break the very backbone of the Ukrainian resistance. And as we've been hearing from Moscow for the past few weeks, Russia claims that it's fighting neo-Nazis and nationalists in Ukraine, not Ukraine as a state or Ukraine as a nation. And this appears to be a way of justifying their war and also dehumanizing their enemy.
But the irony of this, of course, is that more and more, day by day, it is the Russian regime that is sounding more and more fascist. In fact, the other day, President Putin said the war was useful because it was a form of social self-cleansing. Anyone, and in particular Russians, will be able to distinguish patriots from traitors and spit them out as if they were insects crawling in their mouths. I mean, that's like something Hitler might have said in 1938.
And it's not the only such example that we've heard coming from Moscow. Earlier this month, the official Russian news agency called RIA Novosti published an article which spoke about solving the Ukrainian question. And it's not just words. To look at what's happening in Russia, it is extremely worrying. There's a lot of expansionist, aggressive rhetoric in the media and also coming from officials.
Vitaly Shevchenko, who's a regular on the BBC's podcast Ukrainecast, if you want to follow that. Some of his thoughts on the Ukraine conflict, very interesting. I just want to put